Hey Emily, I'm looking over your lesson plans and have some feedback for you, and I saw your note in there to me about working on transitions. So I'm going to show you just right up, so I'm going to pay extra attention to that for you, and I'm going to show you right up front some kind of general rules that you can follow. I guess I shouldn't say rules, general guidelines that you could follow that might help you out with that, okay? So you know, bell rings and you tell the class, share with your table groups about a story. Here's your transition. Have students move desk and sit on the floor. Read out loud. Have them move back and get out a piece of paper, okay? When you're moving kids from doing X into doing Y, okay? So I've got two, it's content, okay? So when you're about to share some content with them versus directions with them, okay? When you're going to share content, you want to make your transitions really explicit. So after the students ask for volunteers to share answer, then say to them, now that you guys have had a chance to share your favorite story from childhood, I want to share one of my favorite stories, okay? Because I'm going to be sharing content, I lead with an explicit transition. But down here, you're moving them from this piece here, we're going to start a new unit, into this piece here, okay? Because you're going to be giving some direct instruction, you want to start them off with a question, okay? So you say, books we grew up reading and still love to this day are amazing examples of narratives that we can always remember and look back on. Move right to this question. Aside from books telling us, where else do we see, hear, or read stories in our day-to-day lives? And let them share with you while you're doing prompting questions and writing on the board, okay? So try those general guidelines as far as transitions go and see if that helps a little bit. See, these transitions you have here are really well done, okay? You have students get up and move around with that intentional purpose that when they move around, they get to choose their own seats. And then because you're about to lead them into some content, you've used a very specific transition, explicit transition, sorry. And I think that that's well done right there, okay? So that one is well done. Keep watching out for the piece that comes after your transition to know what you know, how you should walk through that transition. This is just something very interesting I noticed in your lesson plans. You have like 843 exclamation points in your lesson plan, and interestingly enough, I don't usually have to say this to people, Emily, but you may actually need to scale back on your excitement just a little bit. You are a very high energy person anyways, and you are whip smart, and you could intimidate some of your students with some of that. You're excited for them to be writing narratives, and you want them to be excited for writing narratives, but it doesn't always work that they will mirror your excitement. That works for kids who are good at the school thing, right? Which we've talked about you before. You know, you enjoyed school. When your teachers were excited about something, you went right along with them. Think about some of your more reticent learners, and unfortunately you're going to have more of those than not. Your excitement over writing, especially in a lesson plan like this, could actually turn them off. So dial it back just a little bit. Look at this, Emily. Bear with me while I scroll. From right here, okay, all the way down to here. It's all you talking, and you know that you tend to talk really fast, and it's all you being super crazy over the top excited, okay? Think about having a little bit more back and forth with your students and getting their voice in the room some more. It'll help you know who's excited, who's worried. It'll help the students know that however it is they feel about writing, that it's okay to feel that way about writing, that you're going to take them from wherever they are and move them up a notch, move them forward, move them out, you know, help them. They're not just going to come along with that excitement. I want you to rewrite this section of the lesson plan, and I want you to have some more back and forth with your students. Make this more question and answer than just you talking at them. Okay, watch your checks for understanding right here. You say who has questions for me about the app activity and who has questions for me about the narratives. Only very brave students will be able to answer those questions. Instead, go back and break it down and say, okay, so that app activity can look really interesting. Who's going to be, what kind of student is going to be is going to get the most use out of that. Oh, if you're having trouble coming up with ideas, excellent, good. Now, narratives. Tell me what are some of those basic pieces that we're going to be working on today, right? So give them very specific questions that they can recall from what you said or from their notes, because these really general ones aren't gonna help very much, okay? You do say, can someone volunteer to tell me what our purpose is for going through the app activity? And that's a good one. So keep that one right there. It's nice and specific, but make these two a little bit more specific here, okay? All right, so here's your second lesson plan. Again, I'm looking closely at the transitions, and I like a lot of them in here. Let me tell you the specific things that I like about them so that you can continue to work towards those. Oops, bear with me while I scroll here. Okay, good. So you allow them to work in any way that is helpful to them, and I'm not sure if you'll be saying or writing that you know that these are some of their options, and I think it might be a good idea to just write those on the board for some of those kids that have trouble getting started. They can look up there and just choose one of those, but I like the fact that you're giving them open options that they can choose any one that they want. I think that's really nicely done, and you know, over time it's little things like that that demonstrate to the kids that you trust them to make good choices for themselves, and so that's one of the reasons why I like that. Here you have a very good transition because you're about to lead them into you know, some directions. You give something very specific here, right? So hold your plans up. I see a lot of different diverse stories and in diverse ways of doing them, and so this specific statement right here is nicely done because you're about to lead them into some instructions, okay? So you tell them you're going to be talking about structure. I like the fact that you review a little bit of what you did yesterday to bring it into what they're doing today. That gives some nice continuity from day to day. Again, I like that you use what they were doing yesterday, so they had an experience that you're now allowed to, you know, allowing them to build upon and analyze, and so I think that's very well done. I like the complication that you add, that your antagonist does not have to be something alive. That'll really help some of your students who are advanced writers to throw a challenge at them, and so I think that's good. You're differentiating for the kids on the high end. You may want to have a little bit of differentiation noted over here in one of these columns, so that you have maybe some guided notes or some ideas written down for some of the kids who are struggling a little bit more. All right, and then the one concern I had was here. So you say that the only requirements for their paper are that they have the two elements of a narrative, dialogue punctuated, and at least 3 pages. You know, it concerns me because in a narrative, when you look back at the Colorado Academic Standards, the standards have a lot more requirements in there in the narrative writing, and I think that you may need to expand this list a little bit. I get it because you don't want to overwhelm the kids, but you know that that detailed, descriptive, sensory writing is really essential inside of the narrative unit, and so you may need to add at least that piece in there, okay? Okay, so here's your third and final lesson plan, and I'm actually a little surprised that this is your final lesson plan. I feel like you tried to shove a lot in here. My first clue was your insertion of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 evidence outcomes in one lesson plan, and our general rule is 1 or 2. I don't think that this lesson plan actually addresses every single evidence outcome in here. You do talk to the kids about establishing a context, but you know, by having them act out, but you don't really establish point of view. You do talk about dialogue, but you don't talk about pacing. I didn't see a conversation in this lesson plan about transition words, really, or even about word choice in there. And so, like, you sort of brush on these, but not a lot. You know, and the genre features definitely isn't in there. So I think you're going to need to be willing to push this into a fourth lesson plan so that you can really do a good job at adequately addressing all of those evidence outcomes, okay? All right. So you have them find a decent chunk of narrative and work on revising it. I went over your notes that you had, and those were nicely done. I like the fact that you have the guided notes because it's heavy note-taking day, and you want to make sure that they've got it accurately. So that's well done, and I like those. This piece right here, okay, so I like how you model, you know, actions speak louder than words, and then you have the kids go back and forth, you know, doing that with each other. But where I want to push you is right here, okay? You say, I'm going to give you 6 minutes to work on the revisions you found necessary from our partnership activity. Think about the questions your partner asked you about your story or characters. What can you insert into your story? So the above activity, just like the one that we did in class, is going to give the kid a hint where there's something missing, where there are moments missing, and that's good. But how to fix those moments is not something that you have addressed in here, and you need to address that with the kids. You know, they could at the end of that activity have 10 places in their story marked up where it was really boring, nothing was happening, the activity partner didn't know what to do, and they've got it all marked up. Where do they go from there? You need to change this from a transition into direct instruction, okay? You need to be walking them step by step through making their choices for those moments, what the criteria is for those choices, how to expand and use sensory detail, when to use sensory detail versus dialogue, essentially address all of these. So I think you're going to need to consider moving this into a 4th lesson plan, okay?